What's good, everyone? It's everyone Nazi with another video for the channel. Welcome back to DMV Sports Zone. And today, I have none other than Pedro Schmith, the Pedro Schmith, a very great Washington football team YouTuber who's on the channel once again to talk about our Washington football team, our beloved Washington football team that, once again, is making news. I mean, it seems like every single day they're always in the spotlight, and that hasn't changed today, right, with the Taylor Heinicke news. And I mean, I pretty much had my notes up, before this morning and didn't include the Heinicke news, but obviously we're going to start off with that. What are your thoughts on the re-signing of Taylor Heinicke for 2 years, $8.75 million? And do you think it will have a big impact on our quarterback room?
So I think, and once again, good to be on the channel. I think it's a solid move. Nothing. I think more than anything, I know there's a lot of people that love Taylor Heinicke and think he's a franchise guy. There's a lot of those guys, and I'm definitely not one of them. I'm not also one of the guys that think he can't be a franchise quarterback because you can't tell. I mean, he started started one game for us and almost beat Tom Brady in the playoffs. So you can't really say one way or the other. But I think more than anything, it's an insurance policy. So I think they want to make bigger moves in the offseason. I think, let's say, Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota, something like that, or trade up in the draft. This is insurance for if they're not able to do any of those two things, they're going to have Kyle Allen back more likely than not, and they're going to have Taylor Heinicke back. And I think that gives some insurance because they both can be capable starters for, a period of time. And, who knows if, another year in the system, maybe with some better playmakers, they can be solid. I think it's a solid move. And, 2-year, $8.75 million, that's up to $8.75 million with incentives. So it's probably like a 2-year, $8 million deal. And you maybe part of that's a signing bonus, so it's probably a lot less than we actually think it's gonna be.
Yeah, I agree. First and foremost, on your first point about this area being in love with him, I mean that's absolutely true. Heinicke, right? As Chase Young put out there, a couple of weeks before the playoffs. But no, I'm glad that he's back. He wanted to be back, which is we haven't been able to say, about a lot of players with this team over the last couple of years. So it's great that he wants to be back. It's great to see a guy like Ronald Darby also wants to be back as well. But yeah, I don't think this move, really finalizes anything when it comes to our quarterback position. I think as the reports are that we're going to still be aggressive with the position, maybe go after a guy like you said, Derek Carr, who I heard is on the trade block, and I heard that we're pretty interested in. Also go after, maybe his backup, right? Marcus Mariota, that his name is being thrown around as well. We also have Dak Prescott. We'll get to a little bit later in this stream, but he's also a legit possibility. And then we obviously have Deshaun Watson, right? Everybody's dream pick at this point. But yeah, I think this is very good insurance. If we do go the route of getting a rookie quarterback, maybe Taylor Heinicke could, give us a couple of spot starts in the early part of the season, and then obviously, the rookie quarterback will come in and take over as the season progresses. But I like it. We have Kyle Allen as well. Alex Smith definitely not coming back with this move. I mean, he's already on the books for $15 million if we cut him, but it's $20 million if we keep him. So might as well, or we'll get $15 million back. So might as well get that $15 million back and use it elsewhere on the team. But it's going to be interesting to see how things play out. I do want to get to the news that actually broke yesterday. Pretty sad news coming out of the NFL, and that is the passing of Marty Schottenheimer, the former coach for the Washington Redskins back then, Washington football team right now. And, it's crazy because he was coaching 20 years ago now. So that's before both of us were born. So we don't know really too much about being able to see him coach for our team. But in terms of everything you've heard about him and, the immense impact that he's had on the entire NFL, we saw all those former players tweet out, they're sad about, the news and how much Schottenheimer meant to them and stuff. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on, the whole sad occurrence that happened yesterday and how the Washington Redskins treated him when he was the coach back then?
Yeah, obviously, like you said, both of us are. I mean, he was fired, and he was our coach before we were both born. But I
Mm-hmm.
listen to the Kevin Sheehan podcast every day, and like a lot of these older guys, their podcasts, and they're always talking about that's the biggest mistake in the Snyder era, and how because and then I think when I heard the news that he was not that he was that he passed away, but he was in hospice. I was watching
Mm-hmm.
his like football life documentary, and like everywhere he went, they were a playoff contender for a certain period of time. Every single
Yep.
place. He averaged 10 wins a season. That's his average. So, he went to a couple AFC championship games with, I think the Browns, the Chiefs, and then with the Chargers as well. Really good NFL coach. And then obviously here started off 0-5, turned it around, got us to 5-5, and then ultimately fell a little bit short and ended up 8-8. But the thing that was big with him that I always hear is like he kind of knew before everyone else knew, like the monster that Dan Snyder
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And like he was kind of like obviously he was more like tough nosed than Rivera was, but he's kind of like in the same situation that Rivera is because he was trying to because
Mhm.
he was the only way he was going to stay is if he had total control. He didn't want Snyder to be making these moves. And that's a situation that I think and I hope Snyder, learned from that time with Marty Schottenheimer, and now he's giving everything, all the power to Rivera, and I hope it works out, and I hope he gives him 2-3 years minimum before he starts to, give his little inputs and stuff. But, sad stuff,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, agreed. First off, I want to shout out all the people in the chat: James Panda, Big Boy Die Hard, DC Big Oso, EJ. Appreciate you guys for coming on
What's
and
up,
the
everyone?
support. But yeah, very very sad news yesterday, and again, like we saw how much the coach meant to a lot of former players, a lot of people around the league, with all the tweets on Twitter and all the messages all across social media. But in terms of his time here in Washington, yeah, we really did him wrong back then. And again, like we were super young at the time. You weren't even born. I was like 1 years old, but like it's still crazy that a lot of people, even before obviously his death yesterday, a lot of people were talking about how wrong that we did him. Like he was 8-8 that one season, right? And we fired him right after, and really, like you said, was a sign of things to come in the Dan Snyder era here in DC. The tearing down of this franchise that has happened under Dan Snyder. Schottenheimer was their best coach, under Dan Snyder's regime until Ron Rivera came along. But yeah, it sucks, man. It sucks. I hate. Well, we'll talk about this right now. But the Washington Post article that came out yesterday, Jordan from Washington Football Team Today tweeted it out, and a lot of people thought it was fake, but it wasn't actually. And the reporter Matt Schudel, I believe, from the Washington Post, basically disrespected Marty Schottenheimer in his obituary, um, by saying that Schottenheimer was terrible in the playoffs. And I mean, you touched on it, right? 10 wins. He racked up a lot of wins in the regular season. Sure, he didn't have the great playoff success, but I mean, a lot of coaches don't. And really,
Yeah,
to include that in an obituary for a former NFL coach, a great NFL coach, is just insane to me. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that,
yeah.
but
And one thing also about Schottenheimer, like he had like really, really bad luck. I think it was his 14-2 season with the Chargers against the Patriots. They like one of the last plays of the game, one of their corners picked it off, right? And all he had to do was fall on the ground and they win the game. He decides to try to run it back. He fumbles it, and then the Patriots recover. Brady goes on a
mhm.
drive, wins the game. So like stuff like that, field goals, missing kicks, and yeah, the article was disrespectful. And obviously, it's not necessarily the writer isn't the one who makes the headline, but also if I didn't actually read it, but a lot of people were saying like the first paragraph of the article was also pretty disrespectful. So yeah, and one thing also I saw was like Washington Post, they had two different articles on Marty Schottenheimer after he died. One
Mm.
of the titles was like Marty Schottenheimer, seventh winningest coach or eighth winningest coach in NFL history, dies, and then the other one, and then obviously they changed the headline later, but
Yeah. Yeah, sad stuff, you know. I don't know about you, but Washington Post, I'm like a huge fan of it. I know the Bezos thing, a lot of people don't like it. I personally don't like that, but like at the same time, it is sort of our local paper while also serving as a national paper. So I've always thought that was pretty cool. But that headline yesterday was not it whatsoever. But yeah, rest in peace to Coach, and hope his family is okay, and prayers up to his entire family and really everyone across the league who was touched by Marty Schottenheimer over the last, you know, couple of decades, really. But moving on to that, you know, to some other news that happened in the NFL earlier in the week / late in the weekend. What are your final thoughts on the Super Bowl matchup between the Chiefs and the Bucs that we had on Sunday night? And what did you think about the performance by Brady and the Bucs, especially?
well, I think like you, I predicted the Bucks to win. You did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I predicted the Bucks to win. I think I ended up 11-2 this year, my best year ever predicting.
Okay.
And the Bucks won. I think. I mean, people still hating on Brady. I don't understand it. I mean, I don't even have to list off the accomplishments he has. 7-0.
Yeah.
You can whatever you want about the teams he's on. He can't control. I mean, he can't necessarily control that. He was put into a good situation, and he took advantage of that. He makes people around him better. And I mean, in that game, he was as good as you could be. I mean, he was what 22, 21 of 29 for
Three
whatever,
touchdowns.
200 something yards, 3 touchdowns,
Mm-hmm.
no picks. I think he had one or two bad throws all game. One of them was the first throw to Chris Godwin, where it was a little too far out, and then the other
Mm-hmm.
another one where it wasn't terrible. It was a hard throw to make, where Gronk was in the end zone, could have been a touchdown there, but that's it. He played amazing. I thought Patrick Mahomes, obviously didn't play great, but at the same time, you know, I counted three drop touchdowns by his receivers. Kelsey also dropped another uh, pass, and the Chiefs just got outplayed,
Yeah.
outcoached. You can't complain about the refs either, because it was what, 31-9. It was just, they completely dominated. And I know people like JP Finley hate it, but it is a little bit impressive that we kept it. I'm not celebrating that we kept it
Yeah.
close, but I think it is encouraging that we were able to play a competitive game, with our four-string quarterback against Brady. And, our best playmakers, Gibson and McLaurin, weren't really healthy. And you can say the same thing. They didn't have Devin White, but
Yeah.
I think it was a good game by the Bucks, obviously. And, they have a good chance of running it back, because if Brady comes back, I mean, they do have a lot of free agents, but the thing is, their offense is going to be better next year. I mean, they start like what they got in the second half of this year is what they get for the full year next year, because they had they started off slow because it was all new to them. They didn't have an
Mm-hmm.
offseason. So I think next year they're going to come back strong and get to the NFC Championship or farther if they stay healthy.
Yeah. Agreed. 2 points that I want to get across before just talking about the matchup as a whole. One, that last point that you made about the Bucks not having much of an offseason, and I completely forgot about that point. Like when it comes to how impressive Brady was this season in terms of him not having an offseason really before the season really got underway last year, but. Just thinking about that, that's absolutely absurd, right? 20 years. You spent 20 years in New England playing in a particular type of system, right, with Bill Belichick. Then you move to the Tampa Bay Bucks, a whole new system at the age of 43, 42 years old, and you win a Super Bowl in your first year. I know they're a talented squad. Everybody talks about that. The Bucks have a bunch of weapons on offense. Probably going to lose one of Chris Godwin this offseason, but have a bunch of weapons, running backs as well, Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones. Very good offensive line, underrated coming into the season. I thought they were going to be really good this year. Turned out I was right, but yeah, Brady, he's the GOAT, man. Like, I, I, I don't know what more there is to say about it. Obviously, none of us really want to say that he's the GOAT, right? None of us want him to keep on winning potentially 8 or 9 Super Bowls before his career is over with, but it has to be said he is definitely the GOAT at this point. But yeah, on top of Brady just having a spectacular performance and really showing up, while Patrick Mahomes, the guy that everybody wanted to crown the next guy, right? The next guy who's going to take over the league and win a bunch of Super Bowls and then also become the GOAT. That guy did not really perform too well on Sunday. I know his offensive line. I talked about this in the Unleashed show that I debuted last weekend before the Super Bowl, but I talk about this. They didn't have their two tackles. There's 2 starting tackles. That is a big loss, right? That's why the Chiefs' offensive line was a mess on Sunday. Patrick Mahomes was running all over the field. He still made some impressive throws that were not completions, right? Because his receivers dropped the ball, but he didn't play well. I mean, he can even tell you that, but it was Brady and then the Bucs defense. The Bucs defense, I literally have been saying that Devin White, the reason why we were scoring a bunch of points in that first matchup, other than the fact that Taylor Heinicke just balled out, was because the Bucs didn't have Devin White. Devin White is that guy on their defense. He is the Tom Brady of that defense. He's that crucial. He's going to be a legit stud for years to come. Future Hall of Famer. I really believe that. And we saw that on Sunday, right? Him, Levante David as well, who potentially we could pick up in the offseason. Who knows? I know that's Rico's boy, but that defense was balling out, and ultimately they came out with the W. And I could see a repeat next year, or at least like the matchup itself being the same next year. I don't know about you, Pedro.
Yeah, I mean, especially Brady just does this all the time. And I'm definitely not a Brady hater. Like, I just respect his greatness. I mean, you just can't deny like how impressive it is. Like, people talk about LeBron, doing what he's doing at age 36 now,
Mm-hmm.
and Brady's doing it at 43 years old. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously what LeBron's doing is insane too, but Brady's doing it
Yeah.
at 43 and is winning another Super Bowl on another team. He went from the Patriots to a team all the way different conference, took a team over that was 7-9, won a Super Bowl in his first year. And you got to think, in football, in basketball, that's a lot easier to do,
Yeah.
because if you're LeBron James, you're one
Mm-hmm.
of 5 players on the court. If you're Tom Brady, you're one of 22, because if you count the offense and defense, you're one of 22 players. And it's just so much harder. And what Brady did was just so incredible. And yeah, I think they have a solid shot this year. Obviously, I mean, they got a lot of free agents. They got Chris Godwin. They have who else do they have? They got
David.
Levante David,
Mm-hmm.
Shaq Barrett. They have
Mm-hmm.
a couple other guys. So I think they'll keep Shaq Barrett, and they'll probably keep Chris Godwin or Levante David. One of those two. One of those
Yeah.
two they'll probably keep. The other guy, unless they do take pay cuts, they probably won't be able to keep all 3. But regardless, I mean, their tight ends are going to be insane. Gronk, Cameron
Mm-hmm.
Brate, OJ Howard, who's going to be coming
Gonna be
back
back.
next year.
Yeah.
So I think they have a solid shot in the AFC. I think the Chiefs have another obviously great chance. I think other teams though as well are going to be up and coming. I mean, you got the Bills, maybe the Colts if they get a quarterback, like if they get an above, like Phillip Rivers was solid, but if they get someone above that tier and they keep getting better because they have some young pieces, and maybe even they are a contender. And you obviously got the other teams, Ravens, maybe Dolphins if they improve. What's up, King Sean?
Yeah. We'll get into the Super Bowl contenders for next season a little bit later in the stream, but yeah, I definitely agree with your picks. BG fan, come on, guys, like we got to stop with this. I mean, maybe not maybe. Brady definitely does get some calls, right? We got to be honest. He definitely does get some calls because he is Brady, much like LeBron gets some calls because he's LeBron in the NBA, right? The guy who should have won the MVP last year, right, Pedro? Over Giannis. Remember that conversation in the summer? But no, I mean, yes, he gets some calls, but we got to stop, man. Pedro hit the nail on its head at the very beginning of his comments in terms of it being a 31-9 victory. Like we just got to stop. The Bucs completely outplayed the Chiefs, and Brady was balling, and that defense was balling. That's pretty much why they pulled out the W. Um, Outside of the matchup, though, I want to get to what was actually the thumbnail of this video. And I thought very hard about changing it to Taylor Heinicke, right, with the news earlier today, but nah, I wanted to keep it as Russell Wilson because he's a Richmond, VA native, so DMV. And yesterday rumors were swirling about him potentially, maybe at the very least wanting additional offensive line protection, pretty much demanding it. And then maybe down the line, trade rumors. We'll see if the Seahawks don't meet his demands. But what are your thoughts on that whole situation up in Seattle? And do you think there's a chance that the VA native might actually play for Washington a couple years from now, or maybe even this offseason?
I don't really think at the moment there's really a chance. Could be down the line.
Yeah.
But Seahawks are kind of my second team just because my parents or one of my parents is from Oregon. So,
Um,
so I kind of like when Washington's usually out of the playoffs. That's a team I'm usually rooting for.
it's
But
funny
yeah,
how
I
we're
mean,
usually playing each other, like in the
yeah,
playoffs or competitive games
yeah.
at the end.
But I get what he's saying, and
Mm-hmm.
they've never really had a great offensive line. He also holds on to the ball a little bit too much, but I mean, that's him. That's his play style. I mean, at this point in his career, not too much he can change. He's just trying to make some big plays. I think this is a situation to monitor more into like this coming season. Let's say they go 9-7, miss the playoffs, and Wilson get Wilson gets not traded. He gets sacked like 50 times or 45 times, and they don't make the playoffs. I think that's a situation to monitor that offseason. But I don't think this year there's no way he gets traded. I think the cap hit is even more than something like Carson Wentz would be. So I think next offseason, maybe the offseason after that would be a chance, but I doubt it. What's up, AM Hunter?
What's up, Am? Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a great discussion to have, right? Because Russell Wilson. I personally think he would be an even better option than Deshaun Watson. I know Watson's 26 years old. Russell Wilson's over 30 years old right now, but he's a quarterback, so that doesn't matter too much. But Russell Wilson, if you're ranking top 5 quarterbacks, I would put Deshaun Watson maybe at 4 or 5, and then put Russell Wilson at like 3-ish. But yeah, if we could get him, it would be a big get, but I don't think the chances of that happening are too high. I don't even think we're gonna get Deshaun Watson, let alone Russell Wilson. So, but it's again a great thing to just discuss and really push because again, it's from Richmond, VA, right? There were rumors coming into the draft, I believe, in 2012 of him having a connection with the Watson football team, or us at least having some interest in him. So, I don't know. Obviously, that was a long time ago, but we'll see. We'll see if it happens. I do want to get to Washington's roundtable of football's question about another quarterback within the division this time, and Carson Wentz, who is definitely not even kind of definitely on the trade block right now in Philly with that mess of a situation that they have. And I know we all enjoy that as Washington football fans. But Carson Wentz going to the Colts. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that could really put the Colts over the top?
I mean, the thing is, like with Carson Wentz, I mean, he
Yeah.
obviously sucked this year. He was so bad. I mean, like whatever Eagles fans want to say, like there's just no excuse. He was probably the worst starting quarterback. I'm not really considering Haskins. He played 4 games.
Okay.
Like
I was about to
like
say.
someone who starts eight plus games. Wentz was the worst starter, and he probably was worse than Haskins in Haskins' first 4 games. Obviously, Haskins later. No, like I'm not a Haskins
I know.
defender, but he had like what Haskins had 2 or 3 interceptions in his first 4 games. I think Carson Wentz averaged like 1.5, 2 turnovers a game. He was just so bad this year. But I think he has some potential and maybe a new situation. I think he's mentally done with Philly, and I think he definitely has potential. It's definitely risky, but if you feel confident, that you can turn it around, then I think I would go ahead and trade for him. I personally wouldn't, because whenever you're trading within the division, like the team kind of knows that like the Eagles wouldn't trade Wentz to Washington if they
Yeah.
thought Wentz was still good. Like the McNabb trade, I mean, to Washington, they knew he was done and they traded him to us. So I think I kind of want him out of the division. Obviously, he
Mm-hmm.
was terrible this year, but if he goes back to that 2017, 2018, 2019 form, that is, the Eagles are in a much better place than they are now with Jalen Hurts, who, he had a good game or two, but that was when defenses had no film on him. I mean, the next couple of games really kind of struggled. So I kind of want him out of the division, even though this year he gifted us that first game.
Yeah, yeah. What's up, Dubs? Longtime supporter of the channel. King
What's up,
Saw,
Dubs?
Derek Hawkins. We'll get to Derek Hawkins' question a little bit later, but Carson Wentz with the Colts. I mean, so I won't agree with your point about Carson Wentz being, or at least looking better, or I'm sorry, Haskins looking better in his first 4 games this year. Wentz at least had that big win against the 49ers. I don't know. A lot of people forget that, but early in the season, the Eagles were really struggling. Got a pretty good win against the 49ers, and Wentz actually played pretty well. Didn't put up just garbage time stats like Haskins did during
Wait, can I
a lot
say
of
one
those
thing
4
about
games.
that game?
Yeah.
I was watching that game, and that's when it was like we were really close. Everyone was like 1 win, and I was so like that was Nick Mullins, and Nick Mullins played worse than he did against us. He threw, I think, 2 interceptions in the last like 6 minutes. He threw a pick six so bad. He threw a pick six like he wasn't even looking. He tried to do a no look pass, and he threw it right to the defender. That game,
Yeah.
I'm sure Carson. I think Carson played solid in that game, but that game was won by Nick Mullins.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. But no, Haskins was definitely the worst starting quarterback. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, the metrics show it, and eyeball test definitely shows it. But in terms of the matchup, Carson Wentz with the Colts. I mean, I'm not a huge believer in Carson Wentz, but man, the Colts outside of the quarterback position are absolutely stacked. They have a young, really good running back core, led by the rookie that they drafted last year, who was absolutely balling in the season. They also have, pretty good wide receiving core. Got, T.Y. Hill is still there, Michael Pittman Jr. as well, who looks like a really good young player on that team. That defense, I don't know how, but it's still underrated. It's one of the best defenses in the league. And, led by Forrest Buckner, I believe, who they got last year, trading a first-round pick for him, but he was absolutely balling out, have a very good secondary as well. So the Colts, much like the 49ers, in my opinion, outside the quarterback position, are a very, very good team. But Carson Wentz, in terms of putting them over the top, I'm not so sure. That's why I believe the Colts were actually very much into potentially trading for Matthew Stafford, because they knew they're really just a quarterback away. But ultimately that didn't come through, as all of us know at this point. But no, I think it should be okay. I think it should be okay. They did okay with Phillip Rivers at the quarterback position, or at least the quarterback position did okay, and they won 10 games this year, I believe. So, I mean, they can win a lot of games even with just a pretty capable quarterback, and I think Carson Wentz can be that quarterback this year in a whole different system with a whole different coach and a whole different scheme. So, I think it should be an okay fit. But I do want to get to return to the Washington football team, right? And I want to return to the news that broke a couple of days ago with Dak Prescott following the Washington football team on Instagram. And it's funny how that's breaking news at this point in today's climate. But Dak Prescott following the Washington football team, ultimately unfollowing it very shortly after. But I mean, what are your thoughts there? Take social media aside. Do you think a Dak to DC connection is very much brewing? And would you be on board with that?
I mean, I would definitely be on board with it. And one thing I'll say is like me, if like I've tried a bunch because I don't know why like Dak wants to resign there. Like I mean, obviously I don't know what's going on there. I mean, he knows, but
Yeah.
like you put yourself in his situation, his shoes. It's been 3 years that they've been able to pay him. 3 years. They haven't paid him every single year. They franchise tagged him last year. They paid their running back. They paid their overpriced D end. They paid their overpriced linebacker and their running back 15 mil a year when he was out in Cabo. And
Yeah.
then after that, this season, Dak breaks his ankle or whatever, dislocates it in week 4-ish. They suck after that. They were absolutely terrible. And if I'm Dak, if what I'm saying is you franchise tag me, and I'm done after this season, you guys are going to pay me 37 million for this season. After this season, I'm done regardless. I mean, I'm
Yeah, Kirk
leaving you
Cousins
guys,
deserves
and
it.
you guys aren't getting a single pick. You guys are getting a third round comp pick, because if they want to try to franchise tag him after this year, it's going to be, I think, like 50 million or something over
Yeah,
that, which
really.
they can't do. So Dak has all the leverage in the world, and if I'm Dak, unless you're giving me 39, whatever the money is, unless you're giving me that money, I'm not I'm not re-signing with you, because they've disrespected him every single time. Like, if I'm Dak, I'm saying give me your best offer. Give me your best offer. And if you disrespect me with the first offer, I'm hanging up the phone and I'm leaving you after this season. That's what I'm gonna do. So I think, that was a long rant, but I
No, it's all
think
good.
I would love Dak. I think he's probably the best quarterback officially on the market, because Deshaun isn't really.
Yeah.
You don't know, like, and realistically, even if he is available, do we have the assets, and are we going to be able to trade for him? Dak, if he is available, which I think, I think a lot of people are assuming that it's 100% guaranteed that he's going to be back. But, like, giving all that I just said, like, if you're
Mhm.
Dak, are you not feeling some type of way? Like, I would be, and I think he would be one of the probably the best quarterback we've had in a long time. He's a top 10 quarterback. More importantly, great leader, which is what the front office and Ron Rivera value. So I would love it. And you, even though it's going to be a lot of money, you want to pay these guys now, because in 3, 4, 5 years, if you look, as long as you have a guy you think is going to be a top 10 quarterback, they're going to be middle of the market guys
Mhm.
by the end of their contract. Russell Wilson he was the highest paid quarterback, I think, in 2019. There's been like 3 or 4 quarterbacks that have been worse than him, that have been getting paid more than him. So he's going to be like, by the time he's the end of his contract, he's probably going to be like the ninth highest paid quarterback. So I would love the move.
Yeah, I would too. I will say though, I was gonna bring this up before the comment got through, but Washington's Roundtable of Football. I mean, I know someone in the Prescott household that already is kind of ticked off with Dak's situation right now in Dallas, and I don't know, man. Dak Prescott here in DC will look kind of nice. We have a pretty good defense. We have some weapons on offense. We're definitely going to add there in the draft and a free agency, even with a guy like Dak Prescott coming here and probably getting paid $37 million. We'll see, but a year. But I agree. I agree with you. I think, it'd be a great situation. Dak Prescott throwing a Terry McLaurin for some touchdowns over the course of the season would be a great connection here in DC. Maybe potentially like a Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs connection up there in Buffalo. But I would definitely be interested in it. I do want to say, though, I believe it was King Saw. Yeah, he brought this up. So taking everything into account, right? Let's not even think about, what's realistic, what's not realistic, but taking everything into account when it comes to contract situation, right? The assets you're going to have to give up. Would you much rather have Watson in DC than Dak in DC, or the other way around?
So you're saying, keeping that in mind, the contract
Hmm.
stuff in mind. Okay,
So
it's
keeping yeah,
tough
keeping that in
because
mind, but not like how realistic a
yeah,
move
yeah,
is,
yeah.
because obviously
Okay,
we know,
so
yeah, Deshaun Watson.
I mean, it's tough because Watson's no doubt the better player. I mean, it's not really close, and Watson's a lot younger. I think, you know Prescott's cap is a top 5 quarterback. Like, that's his cap. He's not gonna, like. I mean, obviously he could be the best quarterback in football maybe for 1 year, but I'm saying for like a 3-year period, Dak's cap is like the fifth best quarterback in the NFL. Watson has the potential to be a top 2, top 3 quarterback
Yeah.
in the NFL. In a few years. But also you have to keep in mind you're gonna have to give up 3 first round picks. You're gonna have to 2 to 3 first round picks plus a Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, plus maybe another defensive player, plus
Yeah.
other draft picks. So it's tough to say either way. And also, you have to think the contract is going to be the same for Dak and Watson this year. Obviously, it's going to be cheaper for Watson, but after that, he's making like $39-40 million a year, and he's not even under control for that much. I think it's like 5 years, 4 years. So, taking all that into account, for what you would have to, it's hard to say. I rather have Dak. Obviously, I want Watson more, like the player more. But considering all of that, I might take. Yeah, I would take Dak. You're giving up nothing. You're giving up
Yeah.
nothing. For obviously a worse player than Watson. But you have to think: would you rather have Dak, 3 first-round picks, Deron Payne, and a second, and Cameron Curl, or would you rather have Deshaun Watson?
Yeah. Man, this is a tough like debate. I agree with you. Deshaun Watson has the potential to be, the second best quarterback in the NFL, right behind
And we're only
Mahomes.
saying that because of Mahomes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but Dak, I don't know. I mean, he puts up great stats and stuff, but I don't think, to be honest, though, I don't know if he's the type of quarterback that's going to win you a Super Bowl. I mean, we'll see, right? We have a great defense here. Again, we'll probably build out that receiving core, maybe add a weapon at running back as well in the draft. But I would probably say, taking everything into account in terms of, again, like what we have to give up, Ah, probably go with Dak. Yeah, I don't want to give up 2 or 3 first-round picks, right? Mortgage the future for a guy like Deshaun Watson, who again is very special. I would definitely be happy if we got him, but if I were to like pick one or the other, probably go with Dak. Build out that young offensive core that we have already, and obviously we have that young defensive core. Maybe shore that up in the draft, shore that up with some free agents. And I'm also saying that because I want to go after a guy like Allen Robinson. And speaking of, what do you make of ESPN reporter Jeremy Fowler stating that Allen here in DC and management across the NFL views Terry as only a high-end wide receiver too right now?
Oh my God!
Yeah,
Because I saw like
the
Jordan from
disrespect.
Washington Football Team today. I saw he tweeted that, right? He didn't tweet the Terry part, so I went to Jeremy Fowler to read the whole article, and I was like, what? Like
Yeah.
that baffles my mind. Like that completely baffles my mind. Like because like the guy had, what did he have? Like 1,150 yards, something like that, right?
Over 1,100. Yep.
Yeah, over
1,104 total.
1,100 yards with four different. Wait, yeah, right. 4 different quarterbacks or 3 different quarterbacks.
Four, four, four.
4, right?
Alex Smith,
Yeah,
Allen.
4
Yep.
different quarterbacks. He had, I think, 3 different quarterbacks the year before. And if he wouldn't have gotten hurt this year, he probably would have had 1,350 plus yards. He's quarterback proof. I mean, he's putting up the same numbers as Allen Robinson, and he's a
Yeah.
number one receiver. If anything, if Terry's not a high end 2, he's,
Low
if
end one.
anything, he's close to being like in a year or so, a high end, like a top 10, top 12 receiver in the NFL. Like in a couple, like, I mean, this year, if you think about it, give him a solid quarterback and him being healthy, he puts up 1,350 yards, like 1,350
Mhm.
yards, and that puts him in the top 3 of not receivers, but receiving yards. So, that's just a terrible. I hate that. I hate that. But whatever, you can take that with a grain of salt. I'm not believing any of that. And then in terms of us being the best fit, I mean, I don't agree with that either because I love Allen Robinson. I'm not saying it wouldn't be a great fit for us, but I'm saying for him. I mean, like I know people love Taylor Heinicke and Kyle Allen, but Allen Robinson already had a deal with Mitch Trubisky and with Nick Foles. So why is he going to want to come here, even if he's getting $500,000 more or $1 million more per year? Like he's gonna rather go to the. I'm just throwing names out. The Bucks,
Mhm.
whatever team's a
As a
contender and
quarterback.
has a solid quarterback, he's gonna want to go to that team. He's not gonna want to go to us unless we do address that position. So that's the only reason I would say it's not really a fit because he's been frustrated this whole year. I mean, with the quarterback situation, I would say more like a guy like Curtis Samuel, Marvin Jones, maybe Corey Davis. But Allen Robinson, I would love it. And maybe if we get a Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota, a guy that's a solid starter or an average starter, then he'll probably come. But I don't think he's going to want to come here.
Yeah. Two things. One, I want to be careful with the whole like stats thing in terms of determining whether you're a wide receiver one or not. I know he was playing with Antonio Brown, but I mean, you can just go a couple years back. Juju put up 1,300
Oh,
yards,
yeah,
nine
yeah.
touchdowns in that one season. But I
But
don't see him as anything more as a high end wide receiver two or low end wide receiver one. Probably high end two, because I would classify
Juju
Terry
or
as a
Terry?
Juju. So Juju
Yeah.
is a high end wide receiver two. I would put Terry as like a low end wide receiver one at this
But
point.
here's the thing with like Terry's doing it with absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Like you can talk about the stats like I was talking about the stats, but you talk about his quarterback situation, and the reason why Juju had such a good year was because he had AB on his opposite side. You know who Terry has on the opposite side of him? He has Cam Sims and Steven Sims. He's doing this with the
Yeah.
worst possible situation. So I think he's gonna be a high end number one, at least mid tier number one receiver in the
Yeah.
NFL.
Agreed. And I also agree with the fact that Allen Robinson, if you're Allen Robinson, I don't think Washington is the best fit for you, if we're going to be honest. He wants to go to a team with a stable quarterback situation, right? We might get our quarterback maybe in the draft, get a young guy, maybe get a guy like Derek Carr, but I mean, there's still a lot of instability at this point. And if you're a free agent going into the offseason at the wide receiver position, I think you want a sure thing at the quarterback position on top of the fact that you want to get paid as well. But we'll see how that goes. But in terms of us as the Washington football team, I literally tweeted this out, I believe, yesterday. I've been wanting Allen Robinson here in DC since early October, and I'm standing by it. Allen Robinson, in terms of all those great receivers that are going to be on the market this year. I mean, we have so many. Will Fuller, I know he got suspended towards the end of the season because of PEDs, but even before this season, I mean, he's always showed the talent, always showed the speed, which would be a great compliment to Terry McLaurin and everything that he brings to the table. But Allen Robinson, you're comparing him to guys like Kenny Golladay, Juju, all those guys. I would still take Allen Robinson, man. He is literally the Terry McLaurin of the Bears, right? With a little bit more polish, a little bit better route running, and a little bit more health, if we're gonna be honest. But they're both pretty much quarterback proof, right? No matter the quarterback, they can produce. Allen Robinson, though, I would say that he is. I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm going to say definitely. He is definitely a better receiver than Terry at this point. But yeah, I agree that Terry, maybe by the end of the next season, he could potentially overtake Allen Robinson. We'll see, depending on the quarterback that we have here. But Allen Robinson, Terry McLaurin, DC, got Antonio Gibson at the running back position. You're probably going to add someone in the draft. I mean, maybe shore up the quarterback position. We'll see. But I think it would be a great fit for us. I really do. Having two quarterback-proof receivers just balling out over the course of the season. But I did throw out some other receivers out there other than Allen Robinson that we could potentially be looking into. But do any of those guys that I mentioned float your boat at this point, right? Chris Godwin, Kenny Golladay, maybe even a Corey Davis, Juju, Hunter Henry. I know we heard about those rumors last week before the Super Bowl. What are your thoughts on all those guys in terms of who we can bring in?
I would like Curtis Samuel. I think it just makes sense, and people want us to talk about Carolina, whatever. I mean, he's a slot guy, but he can also play outside. He can do those jet sweeps. He can just be a normal running back sometimes too. I mean, sometimes he just takes
Pedro?
some carries right up the middle as well.
Think
But he's a
Pedro's
gadget
frozen
player, but also
at this point?
is sorry, what?
I think
Wait,
Pedro's frozen.
did you
Oh,
say anything?
yeah. Were you
Yeah.
frozen? Or okay,
Oh no, sorry, sorry, my bad.
it's all good.
But I was just saying with Curtis Samuel, I mean he's 850-ish yards last year. It's kind of the same scheme. He's going to be playing the same scheme he did play in Carolina in 2019 here. So I do like that fit right there. He's solid separator, and that's what we need. We need some guys that if Terry's getting doubled, maybe this guy can get 70, 90, 100 plus yards in this game. If they have a solid secondary, we need someone to help out Terry. Some other guys I like Marvin Jones, Corey Davis would be good. I think he's going to want a lot of money. I do. I think he's going to want like wide receiver one money. I do think that. I don't think he is, but I think just
You think he's
because
gonna get it though?
I
In
think
the
he's gonna
market?
get 15-ish mil because Allen Robinson's gonna get 20 mil. I really
Yeah.
do think he's like if you look on Spot Track, that's his market value, 20 mil,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Amari
could
Cooper
be
got it.
yeah, it could be a couple mil less, it could be a couple mil more. So I think Corey Davis is gonna get a lot of money. I think he's gonna get in that 15-ish range, could give or take a couple, obviously. So I think that would be a good option. Curtis Samuel's gonna be much cheaper. Kenny Galladay, I really don't like going after guys that I would be fine with
Injuries.
it, but he was injured all this past season with a hip injury. He has some injury issues. Will Fuller, I would stay away from. Injury issues, PEDs. Don't like that stuff, all that combination right there. So my guys I like, I would say Corey Davis would be good. Marvin Jones, obviously, Allen Robinson, Curtis Samuel would be good. Those are kind of my guys. I think Marvin Jones, obviously
He's
he's
injury
not
prone too.
what?
I mean, in his career, he's been pretty injury prone, correct?
I'm not sure. I think the last few years he's played. I can check, but
Mm-hmm.
Marvin Jones. Like what I want us to do this year is, at the very minimum, get a guy that is gonna get you 600 plus yards. Because I mean, we just didn't. Besides Terry, obviously, we didn't have that this year. I mean, we just had you got Terry McLaurin and then Cam Sims, Steven Sims, and really no one else besides that. So we need a veteran at least this offseason. Could be a young player too, that at the very least is going to get you 600, 700 plus yards with ease. I mean, he's relatively, I'm looking at his stats from 2017
Mm-hmm.
to 2017 to, oh, sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, I mean, 2018 he missed 9 games, but besides, or 7 games, but besides that, he's played most of his
Okay.
So yeah, I would be Marvin Jones would be solid.
Okay. I mean, you guys heard it. Allen Robinson is my top choice, man. Like again, again, he's gonna command a lot of money on the open market. I understand that. Rightfully so. He is definitely a wide receiver one. I would say more so wide receiver one than anybody in free agency at this point. But I just think it'd be a fantastic pick. If we really want to spruce up this offense and really make it high octane, then we have to go after a wide receiver one, in my opinion. But I think Curtis Samuel, that's a great pickup there as well. Especially if we go after a quarterback that might be a little bit pricey. We're not going to have a lot of people point to our cap room and say, oh my gosh, we have so much cap space. But when you think about it, we still have to re-sign Brandon Sheriff. We'll probably re-sign Ronald Darby, who isn't going to be too cheap, maybe at least 8 to 9 million, if we're going to be honest, per year. We have some other guys, some other holes on that defense as well. Draft picks as well cost money. I know they don't cost too much money, but they still cost money. But Curtis Samuel would definitely be a guy that won't command, $15+ million. At least we don't think so. But would definitely be great as a solid wide receiver 2 on our team. I did see earlier in the chat someone brought up or asked, why do I have Terry as a low end wide receiver 1 at this point? I mean, personally, I think he has the talent to just take over this league and really be a very even higher than that. But at this point, you got to take into account stats and also have to take into account, his injuries over the last couple of years. I think if you just get a very good quarterback or even a semi-decent quarterback to be there in DC, he's going to take off and we'll see him really ascend in this league. But that's where I have him right now. But obviously that's subject to change. Corey Davis, another guy that's very good. I think, yeah, I really do agree that he's probably going to be overpriced in this market, with a lot of teams looking after wide receivers. But at the same time, you can also look at the draft the last couple of years, and really this year, especially with all the young talent, the wide receiver position, and really come up with a counter argument as to Corey Davis not getting as much money as we're expecting because, there's so many young guys that get drafted pretty much every year the last couple of years that could really start and do wonders for certain teams around the league. So I think Corey Davis would be a great fit still. He's arguably the best blocking wide receiver in this free agent class, and we need that. We need some more blockers. Terry is another great blocker at the wide receiver position, but if you could combine those two, I mean, they're great receivers as is, but I mean, if we're going to help the run game, right, maybe help out the offensive line, it would be great to have some additional blocking there. But yeah, I think those are my guys: Curtis Samuel, Allen Robinson, Corey Davis, all good guys that we can bring here in DC and would really help out our wide receiving core. Um, I see some other comments in the chat. Yes, Sheriff is definitely a priority. I'm like,
Yeah,
I know a lot of
definitely.
people think, he's been inconsistent. I get that he has, but you cannot let an all pro right guard off the team, right? When you don't have too many good offensive players as is, and yes, I'm counting him even as being a right guard, but I think you just have to resign him. I know it's probably going to be 15, 60 million a year, but you got to do it at this point. And some other comments, Logan Thomas, do you think our tight end situation is solved right now, or do you think we might add there in the draft or in free agency?
Yeah, wait. So real quick, one thing. So I just wanted to say the contract for Taylor Heinicke, like the details got leaked, and it actually, like what I thought it was gonna be, like it's nowhere near 8.75 mil. It's like 1 mil pretty okay. Like I'll read it right here. So he has a $1 million signing bonus. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
in 2021, his salary is $1 million. Game day rosters up to 500K. So if he's dressed for every game, he gets 500K added on to his salary, which that's obviously realistic. That definitely could happen. Regular season wins up to $1.5 million. Team makes playoffs up to 250K. Playoff wins up to 250K. 2022 salary 1.5 mil is his base. Roster bonuses up to 750K. Obviously each game, if he plays all 16, he'll make
Mm-hmm.
around 750K. And it's kind of similar in the regular season stuff and playoff wins. So that is
Very
such a cheap
incentive laden.
contract if you think about it. I mean,
Yeah.
what was that? Let me read back. $1 million signing bonus is what he's getting. And then if you look at the base salary, you combine the 2 years, it's $2.5 million. It's absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean,
Well,
obviously,
it's a lot for him,
yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm
after
just saying in terms
taking
of
college classes.
if you just look at the 2 year, $9 million contract,
Yeah.
it's a lot less than that. It could be 2.875 mil, but more likely it's probably if he plays the 2 years here, he'll probably make like 5 mil,
Yeah.
depending on it happens. And then I think we were talking about Sheriff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would definitely bring back Sheriff. I think
And the tight end
probably around
situation as well.
15 mil a year is what it's going to take, and I would do it. The health concerns me a little bit, and maybe you can use that in leverage a bit
Mm-hmm.
in negotiations to bring it down a bit. Maybe he's asking for 15.5. You say, well, look at these games. Maybe you can get it to 14.5, 15 million, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think you bring him back. Our offensive line was better than we expected. It's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. Like all the positions coming into the season that we thought were the weakest actually turned out to be so much better than we thought. Tight end, our secondary, and offensive line were, everyone was talking about those as our biggest concerns heading into the season. And tight end, obviously still need to address some depth there, but played a lot better than we thought it was going to be. Offensive line so much better than we thought it was going to be, especially with competent quarterback play. The sack numbers were not good, but that's not really reflective of the offensive line.
Yeah.
And then our secondary, second best in the league. Obviously, numbers skew that a little bit, but
They
so much
do.
better,
They
so much
do.
better than we thought it was going to be. I mean, they
Yeah.
they were. I mean, you can't be the second best secondary statistically, and not at least be above average. I think they were a lot better than we thought they were going to be. So we got to re-sign Sheriff. I would say Darby or someone similar to that. I mean, you got Darby, William Jackson in free agency. AJ Bouye just got cut by the Jaguars. So you got some solid, Ronald Darby type cornerbacks out there that you can go after. I would re-sign Darby though. So yeah.
What about so this is going back to the original question about the tight end situation, do you
Oh
think
yeah.
again like Logan Thomas pretty much has that down, or do you think? I mean, again, like there pretty much been three guys since October really that I've been hyping up and really wanting to be on this team by the time the offseason rolled around, and those three guys are Allen Robinson, Zach Wilson in the draft. Obviously, we won't get him. Zach Wilson in the draft unless we trade up. And then Kyle Pitts, if we stay at that spot or maybe move up a couple picks, but Kyle Pitts maybe at the tight end position. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the position? Do you think we could short things up in the free agents period, or maybe in the draft, or do you think we're good as is? What are your thoughts?
I don't think we're good as is. I
Yeah.
think we're definitely at least short term good in terms of tight end one in Logan Thomas. I think we could upgrade the position. I definitely think we could. I think we could get someone better there. But I mean, if you look at it, there's really only like I would say three elite tight ends in football. Maybe you can throw in one other there, but I would say Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Darren Waller. So the difference between, number 5 and number 10 is not that big. It's really not. If you look at the difference between the fourth best quarterback and the 10th best quarterback, it's a huge difference. And that's the difference between making the AFC championship and making the wild card game. So tight end is not that big of a difference. If you think you have that guy, go ahead and take him. But I would say more so get some depth in free agency. Maybe, there's so many of these tight ends that you can get in the late rounds. Maybe draft a tight end in rounds like 3. 3 is a little bit of reach for me, but if there's a guy there, go ahead. 3 to 6 that you can groom behind Logan Thomas for a year or so. And maybe he can be that guy if Logan Thomas leaves in free agency. And we also have Thad Moss. So I don't think we need to necessarily upgrade over Logan Thomas now, but we definitely need some depth.
Yeah, I agree. Logan Thomas, arguably our best pickup in the offseason. This man's balled out throughout the season. I know a lot of people who were keeping up to date with the videos on the channel knew that I was pretty hesitant to crown him as that tight end one until I believe it was the week before the Steelers game. So definitely gave me some time to really jump on that bandwagon towards the end of the season. But and I know that's Corey's guy. But Logan Thomas, the greatest thing that he's done for us is at least allow us to circle his name in pencil at the tight end position and really move our attention towards other positions on the roster. I think, we should be fine with Logan Thomas as our tight end one. Although, yes, I would love to add another dynamic guy at the tight end position, Kyle Pitts, or maybe, like you said, a guy who could at least provide some really good production as a backup tight end that we've actually had a very good track record of having the last couple of years before this year, right? We had Vernon Davis for a series of years when Jordan Reed kept getting injured, but maybe we could add a guy like a Schmith. Maybe he might be a little too pricey, but someone like that, right? Someone who's very
Gerald
capable at
Everett.
the position. Gerald Everett, I believe. A.M. Hunter brought his name up. Hunter Henry, I mean, tight end one, but if again we want to really get us some playmakers at the position, really help out a young quarterback maybe who we draft, right? The tight end is usually the security blanket for a young quarterback, so maybe we could go after a guy like Hunter Henry, but we'll see, man. We'll see. I definitely agree, though. I don't think we'll stay pat as is, and I think we'll definitely acquire someone to really shore up that position. I have 2 more questions for you, Pedro. The last question, which everyone who's been keeping going with the live streams know what that question is going to be. But second to last question, I do want to ask you. So going back to where we started, really towards the beginning with the Super Bowl, right? Who do you have as the legit Super Bowl contenders next year?
Man, it's just tough to pick against the teams that were just in there.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, obviously it depends on free agency. I would say the Chiefs right now, just because, for sure who, for sure who's gonna be on their roster. I don't think they have any major free agents. Mahomes is still young, gonna get a little bit better. They got some other guys on that team. The Bucks, if they bring back those guys, if they bring back, Levante David, Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin isn't even that much. Yeah, he's not a priority because you got Mike Evans, and AB is better than I know this postseason he wasn't necessarily, but he wasn't really given that role. And I mean, 2 years ago, he was like, no doubt
The
a
best
top.
receiver in the league.
Yeah, no, yeah, he
Arguably.
was the best receiver in the league. Like, so I think let's say they lose Chris Godwin, but they keep Levante David and Shaq Barrett. I think they're up there too. You got to keep the Packers in the conversation, even though they always just choke in the NFC Championship games. And then so I would say it's funny because I'm saying the top four contenders are the teams that just made the. But I'm okay. I'm gonna try to give one other team. It's tough because the Saints. I don't think they're gonna be close. But who? Let's say Jameis Winston comes back, and who knows? Like, I know he's one of those guys. You have
30
no
for
idea.
sure.
You
Yeah.
have no idea. He could come back and do another 30-30, another 30-30 year. But he like I would say if the Saints bring him back, they have a good eye for these players. I would feel confident in their ability, not necessarily to make the Super Bowl, but I mean, Drew Brees was not good this year. He was not good. So I honestly think if Winston has learned from Brees and Sean Payton, maybe that could help him out. And in the AFC, maybe you see the Ravens bounce back. Who knows? It's tough to give, four teams that were not in the
Yeah.
or another team besides the teams that were in the Final Four. Oh, I forgot. Obviously, the Rams
There you
are a
go. I was
team.
waiting for it.
Yeah, the Rams are a team. I just forgot because of Stafford. And then the
Yeah.
49ers as well. I mean, you add, let's say, even if you keep Jimmy G, they went what, 13-3, 14-2 the year before. You add in a quarterback better than that. Let's say you add in whatever the name is. Whatever the name is, better than Jimmy G. They're up there too. That division is insane. That
Yes.
that division is insane.
Yeah. First and foremost, Chiefs Bucks should be back next year. The Bucks, even if they lose Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Scotty Miller, I think that they're
And
pretty not just capable. That's one of the best groups in the league, even
and
without
then the three
Godwin.
tight ends too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And the running backs as well, who could catch passes. I mean, it's offensive line as well, one of the best in the league. You got the defense, one of the best in the league. I do think it's gonna be tough for them to bring back both Shaquille Barrett and Vontae David. So we'll see how things pan out there. But I mean, if you have a guy like Devin White who actually stays healthy, things should be solid either way. So I would say the Bucks, Chiefs. I would even have the Bucks as the leading team right now to win it all next year and to repeat. Chiefs, I think when you have a healthy offensive line, right, that Patrick Mahomes did not have towards the end of the season, I think they'll be better and they'll be back in contention once again. The Packers, as long as they give Aaron Rodgers help for the first time in really his entire career when it comes to playmakers at the wide receiver position outside of Devontae Adams, and maybe draft their wide receiver in the first round, or just give him some help, man. Like they wasted his prime for way too long, and right now, he's 37 years old, but still is coming off an MVP season, so he still has some years left. Give him some weapons, man. It's about time, right? And I think the Packers will be back in contention for another Super Bowl. We'll see if they actually make it to the Super Bowl, because we pretty much say that every single year that they'll be in contention, but they never make that next jump. The Bills, again, if you guys have been paying attention to this channel, I'm a huge, huge, huge Josh Allen fan in terms of me thinking that he's going to be a great quarterback. He's already a great quarterback, but he's potentially could push for that 1 to 3 slot range when it comes to the quarterbacks in the NFL. I thought, going into the season 2 years ago, I thought Lamar Jackson was going to have a breakout. I was right. Last year, I thought Josh Allen was going to have a breakout. I was right. So hopefully, those two guys still do their thing. And I think the Ravens will also be in contention. The other team, that we sort of touch on the DMV Sports Zone Instagram page in the DMV. Hopefully they do well as well. But I think, the Rams, guys, people I don't think people fully understand how good of a team. I know you do, Pedro, but in terms of people in the chat or maybe just casual fans, anybody, the Rams have one of the best defenses in the league. They have
Top
Aaron
three.
Donald,
Top three, no
Aaron
doubt.
Donald, and Jalen Ramsey, two of the best at their respective positions. Aaron Donald, the best defensive player in the league. on their defense. They have good guys around them as well, right? On that defense. And you also have to add in the offensive playmakers that they have around Matthew Stafford. They have one of the best receiving corps in the league in Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. They have great tight ends. We'll see if they keep Everett, but even then, they have some great tight ends as well. Offensive line is pretty top notch, if you ask me. And then moving to the running backs, pretty good, young, stable running backs as well. Cam Akers leading the way off a pretty good rookie year. So I think the Rams, I know a lot of people, Corey as well, from On the Warpath, like to say, oh, Matthew Stafford hasn't won much. Who's going to say he's going to win with the Rams? Guys, he finally has a legit defense for the first time in his career. I know he's had some playmakers on offense, but he's never had the playmakers plus the defense, and he's getting that this year, and I think the Rams, look out. I said this on Twitter, Pedro. I think you saw it as well. I think the Rams might have the potential to be the 2020 Bucks next year. I really believe that. They have all the things going for them. They even have the Super Bowl in their home stadium. So if you add that in, I think the Rams are going to be really good. But I know you do have to go, Pedro. So I'm going to ask you the last question, as I ask everybody who comes on the stream the last couple of weeks. And I'd like to save this for last because it is such a big question. But in terms of our Washington football team, right? What do you make of Washington's future? Do you think we'll achieve consistent playoff berths and potentially Super Bowl down the line? What do you think? What do you think is the state of the Washington football team right now, and where do you see us moving forward?
I'm optimistic. Obviously, I mean, you kind of have to be optimistic, like especially, we won the division this year on 7-9, but still, we had a much better season than expected. And honestly, as long as you keep improving, so that Snyder, stays committed to not messing stuff up, like, because that's the biggest thing with Snyder. Like, we got to get Rivera this year to show some growth, like either win the division again or find the franchise quarterback, like one of the two. Like, because if we win 7 games this year, but let's say, like, I'm just giving a random name, and draft Mac Jones or Justin Fields, and we don't have a great season, 7-9, but it looks like we found our franchise guy. I think that'll give Rivera another year or two of cushion, but we got to show the consistent steps. I heard John Keim talk about it before. Like, you got to just not 1 year, but you have to put it, 2-3 years of sustained success, or at least sustained, like, you have to string together some solid years. And I think they have the right people to do that. And I definitely have the faith in Rivera, Martin Mayhew, and Herney. Like, I think they're gonna pick, like, they might not be these like geniuses, like, Kyle Smith, but I think they're not gonna pick the Darius Geis of the world, the Dwayne Haskins, like players like that they didn't fail because of, well, partly they did fail because of their physical tools, more so. I mean, Geis was more because of injuries and off the field issues. Haskins was physical and also his mental. They're not going to draft those guys. Like, they're not going to draft those guys, and that's what I'm confident in when they draft their franchise. If they draft their franchise quarterback, they're not going to. The reason that, like, let's say Justin Fields fails if we draft him isn't going to be because of character issues. I feel strongly about it. I feel like they're going to pick the right guys. And yeah, I mean, we talk about Kyle Smith, loving him all the time, and he was great. Like, I loved him, but he also had some bad picks as well. You don't know which guys are necessarily his pick, but Jerron Christian, Monte Nicholson, Fabian Moreau. Sua Cravens wasn't his pick, but Darius Geis, Dwayne Haskins wasn't his pick, but there's a lot of guys. So, I like the direction. Just got to find the franchise quarterback. That's the biggest thing. I mean, I think our defense, we didn't talk about it much today, but linebacker is our biggest need. But I think our defense is good enough right now. Like, you can win a Super Bowl with this defense. It's not at the point where it will win you the Super Bowl, but you can no doubt win the Super Bowl with this defense. You just got to have some upgrades at offense. So, got to find the franchise quarterback. We got a couple other pieces in on the defense and on the offensive end, but I like the direction we're moving in, and especially we have the right guys around. Ron Rivera, like I said. So as long as Snyder doesn't mess things up, I think we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of John Keim, did have him on the channel. If you guys haven't already saw a lot of still relevant information in that video,
Yeah.
outside of Matthew Stafford, obviously, but still relevant information. And yeah, he said this pretty much the same thing. Very hesitant to say, we're gonna be really good, without the quarterback situation getting resolved, and I think we all agree with that. I will say though, potentially, Sweat and Young could be the best duo at defensive edge by the end of the 2021 season and really rack up 20 plus sacks. We'll see. I think Young will get a bunch of those sacks as well, and Sweat is no joke. Sweat is a really
Yeah.
good player, and we saw that this year, batting a bunch of passes. Everybody remembers the Thanksgiving game, but he was batting passes even into the playoffs as well. So I
One
think,
Yeah,
go ahead.
one quick thing. I'm gonna make a video about this off season, but I
Okay.
think Chase Young is gonna absolutely have an insane monster season this year. I'm not gonna get into too much, but
Mm-hmm.
just look at Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack. Look at their stats. They were both 4-3 defensive players. Look at their stats in the second
Second year.
year.
Mm-hmm.
Von Miller, Khalil Mack both played under Jack Del Rio. Look at those stats in their first, second years. Chase Young was playing injured for like 6 weeks, and he said he started getting healthy in the Bengals game. Look at the stats from the Bengals game to the end of the season. Absolute beast. He might be top 5 like finishing in defensive player of the year. That's how high I'm on. I think he's just gonna have an insane year this year.
Agreed. And everybody make sure to check out that video when it comes out. I know it's gonna be a good one, as always. But yeah, definitely agree there. Chase Young, definitely think he's gonna break out this year, and Montez Sweat as well. I think he's just gonna continue progressing, and oftentimes gets lost in the conversation when it comes to the best defensive players that we have, or the best defensive player that we have. Everybody just assumes Chase Young, but no, Montez Sweat is very good as well. In terms of the future of the Washington football team, I mean, I'll add a couple of things that are different from like previous videos, but I will say that really good front office structure, in my opinion, that we have right now, Martin Mayhew, Marty Herney, Ron Rivera really overseeing everything. I have faith, man. As long as Ron Rivera is the head coach here in DC, I have faith, and I won't really drift off too much from that until we start losing consistently and everything just goes wrong. But I think we're building something. I really do, for the first time, definitely in our lifetimes. The Washington football team is building something here in DC, a consistent winner. Quarterback situation obviously has to get resolved. Wide receiver, maybe add one at the wide receiver position as well, alongside Terry McLaurin. Maybe shore up the offensive line, although, like you mentioned earlier, isn't as bad as a lot of people thought going into the season. And then we have to add in a linebacker as well on defense to really shore that up. But I think in terms of our roster construction, very good. In terms of our front office, very good. But that guy, Daniel Snyder, that guy, Daniel Snyder, who's always seems to interject in everything and was the reason why we drafted Dwayne Haskins. I think Ron Rivera at this point has enough power where he can make the right decisions and not be clouded by Daniel Snyder's awful judgment the last 2 decades. And I think we'll win some games.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts, Pedro, before we wrap up on this great stream?
Nope. Thanks for having me. I appreciate for having me on, and yeah, keep up the good work.
Appreciate it. Everyone, go make sure to check out Pedro's channel if you haven't already. I already put the link in the description.
Appreciate
Please
it.
make sure to like, comment, and no problem. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe to this channel where we try to post fire content as much as possible with fire creators like Pedro Schmith, and also make sure to go like our DMV Sports Zone page on Instagram and our DMV Sports Zone page on Twitter as well. Go make sure to follow those pages. Put great content on there as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. I see everybody shouting out Pedro in the chat. Ali,
See
Reggie,
ya.
Reg, King
See ya, Reggie, Reg,
Song,
Ali.
AM Hunter, everybody. Appreciate your guys' support as always, and have a great night, guys. Peace out.
Peace.